What happens when a homeowners association president crosses the line, bringing fake security to a family's doorstep, only to be stopped in her tracks when the wife comes home in her Navy uniform? Bang, bang. The sound on the door wasn't polite, it was sharp, like someone demanding entry rather than asking to speak inside their two-story brick home on a quiet street in Plano, Texas. Marcus Johnson froze for a second in the living room. His wife Danielle was still at work, serving her last day of duty before the weekend. Their 7-year-old daughter was upstairs reading in her room. He wasn't expecting anyone when Marcus pulled back the blinds. He saw 3 figures on the porch. One woman in a fitted blazer, her arms crossed like she owned the place. Beside her, 2 men in dark jackets with the word security stitched on, but no badges, no names, no official gear. They stood tall, hands on their belts, giving off the kind of presence meant to intimidate. Marcus opened the door halfway. "Can I help you?" His voice was calm, though his heart was already picking up speed. The woman leaned forward, her tone sharp. "Mr. Johnson, I'm Linda Sorensen, president of the Homeowners Association. These are enforcement officers. We've received multiple complaints about your property. I'm here to inform you that your family is in violation of community standards. You'll need to make arrangements to leave." Marcus blinked. "Excuse me? Leave?" "Yeah," Linda said quickly as if she'd rehearsed the words. "The HOA has rules, and those rules are non-negotiable." Behind her, one of the so-called enforcers adjusted his jacket, shifting his weight like he was ready for confrontation. Marcus kept his hand firmly on the door. "With all due respect, I've lived here a year. I've paid every HOA fee on time. I've followed the guidelines. What exactly are you talking about?" Linda smirked, eyes narrowing. "Unapproved modifications, excessive noise, and your lawn doesn't meet community standards. Don't play coy, Mr. Johnson. The rules exist for a reason. This neighborhood has a reputation to protect." Marcus felt heat rise in his chest. The lawn was trimmed just last week. Noise? The loudest thing in his house was his daughter's laughter. This wasn't about grass or noise. He could feel it. The enforcer to Linda's right stepped forward, his boots heavy on the porch. "Best not to argue, sir." Marcus took a breath, steadying himself. "Show me the paperwork. Show me the official violation notice. Otherwise, this conversation is over." Linda's smirk vanished for a moment before she masked it again. "We don't need to show you anything tonight. I'm telling you face to face as a courtesy. You're expected to comply." Marcus looked past her. A couple of neighbors had come out of their homes, curious about the voices carrying across the street. A woman holding her dog's leash paused on the sidewalk, her eyes darting between Marcus and the self-proclaimed officials. Another neighbor, an older man in a baseball cap, leaned against his mailbox, watching closely. Marcus squared his shoulders. "With all due respect, Mrs. Sorensen, courtesy doesn't involve showing up at my door with 2 fake cops." Her lips tightened. "Fake? Are you calling me a liar?" "I'm calling this what it looks like," Marcus said. "Harassment." The taller enforcer muttered, "What's your tone, sir?" But Marcus didn't flinch. His daughter's small footsteps moved upstairs, and he felt the weight of protecting her more than ever. He raised his voice enough for the gathering neighbors to hear. "If you have an issue with me, bring official documents. Until then, you're trespassing on my property." The air grew thick. The men shifted, clearly surprised by his pushback. Linda crossed her arms tighter, her face flushed with irritation. "Fine," she spat. "If you want to make this difficult, we'll escalate. Don't say I didn't warn you. The community deserves better." Marcus locked eyes with her. "The community deserves fairness, and right now you're showing neither." A murmur spread through the small crowd now. People whispered to each other, sensing something off. Some pulled out phones, cameras quietly raised. Linda seemed to note and adjusted her tone, though her frustration boiled just beneath the surface. "Think carefully, Mr. Johnson. This neighborhood doesn't tolerate troublemakers. Marcus gripped the edge of the door, his knuckles white. He could feel the story spinning beyond a simple disagreement, and deep down he knew this was only the beginning. But just as Linda didn't move from the porch, her chin lifted slightly, the way someone does when they want to remind you of who's in charge. The two men flanked her, their presence heavy and deliberate. Marcus stayed in the doorway, refusing to give them the satisfaction of stepping back. "Since you want everything in writing," Linda began, her voice loud enough for the neighbors to hear, "I'll spell it out. You painted your shutters without approval. That's violation number 1. You've left trash bins visible from the street. That's violation number 2. And number 3, she dragged out the pause, her eyes flicking toward the crowd. Your family's gatherings bring too much traffic into this community. This neighborhood was built for peace and order, not disruptions." Marcus's brow shot up. Painted shutters? Those shutters were the same color when we moved in. Trash bins? Everyone puts their bins by the garage before pickup day. And as for traffic, my sister came over twice last month. Twice. That's your evidence? One of the enforcers grunted. "Doesn't matter. If she says it's a violation, it's a violation." Marcus turned toward him. "And who exactly are you? What authority do you have here?" The man shifted his stance, but didn't answer. His silence spoke louder than any excuse could. Linda cut in quickly. "Mr. Johnson, these officers are contracted through the HOA. Their job is to make sure rules are followed. You can argue all you want, but the rules don't bend for anyone, not even you." Marcus clenched his jaw. "Then let me see the contract. Let me see your bylaws. You don't show up at someone's door with threats and vague accusations and expect them to just roll over." By now, the neighbor with the dog had stepped closer, tugging her golden retriever along, as if the show was too compelling to ignore. The man by the mailbox shook his head slowly, his eyes never leaving the so-called officers. A teenager across the street started recording on his phone. Marcus noticed all of it, and so did Linda. Her voice tightened. "Look, you might think you can talk your way out of this, but this community doesn't run on feelings. It runs on order. If you can't handle the standards, maybe this isn't the right place for your family." The words hung in the air. Some neighbors exchanged quick glances, whispers darting between them. Marcus could hear the weight of her message, the edge behind it. He leaned against the doorframe, refusing to break eye contact. "My family has just as much right to be here as anyone else. We worked for this home. We pay the same dues as everyone else. What you're doing right now, it's harassment dressed up as authority." The enforcer on the left stepped closer, his boots hitting the concrete with force. "You better lower your tone, sir. We're not here to debate." Marcus looked down at the man's jacket again. Still no badge, no patch, just a stitched word, security. He let out a short, humorous laugh. "Enforce? What? The way you're standing on my porch without a single piece of identification? You think intimidation is the same thing as law?" The crowd murmured again. Linda raised her hand sharply, silencing the men beside her. "Fine. You want to play lawyer? We'll play. I'll put in for a fine, multiple fines in fact, enough to push you into default. Once you're behind, we can move for lien, foreclosure. It won't be quick, but it'll be effective." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. She wasn't bluffing, at least not entirely. Coaches had ways of making life miserable, but the fury in her voice wasn't about rules, it was about control. "Do you hear yourself?" Marcus said quietly, his tone low but steady. "You're threatening to take away a family's home over shutters and trash bins. That's not protecting the community, that's abuse." The older man by the mailbox finally spoke, his voice gravely. "Linda, that sounds extreme. Maybe this ain't the way to handle it." Her head snapped toward him. "Stay out of this, Harold. You don't know the details." "I know enough to smell something wrong," Harold replied, crossing his arms. The dog walker spoke next. "I've never heard a single complaint about this family. Their daughter plays with my niece. They've never been disruptive."
Linda's face flushed red, her authority slipping as the crowd began to side with Marcus. She gestured quickly to the enforcers. "We're done here. He's been warned. Don't think this is over, Mr. Johnson." But Marcus didn't flinch. "I'm not going anywhere, not until you bring actual proof." The tension thickened, neighbors shifting, phones still recording. Linda turned sharply on her heel, her heels clicking against the pavement as she stormed off the porch. The enforcers trailed behind, their expressions hard but unsure. Marcus stood in the doorway, his pulse hammering. He knew this wasn't finished. Linda wasn't the... But as the small crowd lingered, the whispers grew louder, and Marcus realized this fight wasn't just between him and the HOA president. It was about to pull the whole neighborhood into the spotlight. The porch light cast a yellow glow across the driveway, but it wasn't just the Johnsons and Linda anymore. By now, at least a dozen neighbors had stepped out, drawn by the noise. Some stood on their lawns, others leaned against cars parked along the curb. A few quietly raised their phones, recording what was quickly turning from a private HOA matter into neighborhood theater. Marcus stayed planted in the doorway, his body angled so that the crowd could see his face as well as Linda. He knew witnesses mattered. Linda, however, didn't seem to notice, or maybe she didn't care. She turned sharply, heels digging into the concrete, and faced the onlookers. "Everyone here should understand something.
2001. Linda's eyes darted around the crowd. For the first time, she seemed aware of how many people were against her. But she refused to step down. "This isn't over," she snapped. "I'll file the paperwork tomorrow. I'll bring the board into this, and when the fines pile up, don't say I didn't warn you." Danielle didn't flinch. She tilted her head slightly, her voice firm but controlled. "Bring whatever paperwork you want. We'll be ready. But next time you come without these men, and you come with actual evidence." A ripple of agreement spread through the crowd. Someone muttered, "She's right," loud enough for Linda to hear. Linda glared at Marcus, then at Danielle, her face twisted in frustration. The power she thought she held was slipping away, and everyone could see it. But before she could retreat and lick her wounds, Danielle took one last step forward, ready to expose exactly how fragile Linda's so-called authority really was. The driveway had turned into a stage. Neighbors stood shoulder to shoulder, now whispering, pointing, filming, while the Johnsons faced Linda and her two so-called enforcers. Every second stretched, like the entire block was waiting to see who would crack first. Danielle stood tall, the faint streetlight glinting off the pins on her navy uniform. She hadn't raised her voice, but she didn't need to. Authority radiated from her posture, the calm way she asked questions, the way she looked straight into people's eyes. It was a presence Linda couldn't match. "Gentlemen," Danielle said again, her tone firm but not angry, "show me your IDs. If you're really contracted security, you'll have credentials. And if you don't, you're trespassing, plain and simple." The taller man shifted, pulling at his jacket. His partner glanced nervously at the phones pointed at them. Finally, the shorter one spoke up. "Ma'am, we don't carry IDs. She just told us it was neighborhood enforcement, that's all." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone in the back muttered, "Knew it." Danielle's expression didn't change, but her voice carried like steel. "So you're admitting you're not licensed security? You're just here on her word?" The taller man finally broke. "Look, we were just asked to stand here. Look official, that's it." His voice cracked under the weight of the crowd's eyes. Linda spun on them, her voice rising. "Quiet, both of you, you're making this worse." Marcus stepped forward, crossing his arms. "No, they're making it clear. You brought two men to my home to scare us, and they've just admitted they don't have a shred of authority." Teresa, the woman with the dog, raised her phone higher. "Got it all on video." Linda's face reddened. "This is harassment against me now. I'm trying to do my duty as HOA president, and you people are twisting everything." Danielle's eyes narrowed slightly. "Harassment is what you did tonight. coming onto our property, threatening foreclosure without proof, parading these men around as if they had power. That's not leadership, that's intimidation. The crowd murmured louder, a swell of agreement washing over the Johnsons. Harold, the older man, stepped closer to the porch. "Linda, I've backed you in meetings before, but this ain't how business is done. Folks don't want bullies running this neighborhood. They want fairness." Linda pointed a trembling finger at him. "You don't know the pressure I'm under. Property values are everything. One wrong move and this neighborhood? Property values don't give you the right to target people." Danielle cut in, her voice sharp enough to silence Linda mid-sentence. "This isn't about grass or shutters. Everyone here can see that this is about who you think belongs and who doesn't." Silence fell. That truth hit harder than any threat. The enforcers looked ready to leave, shifting awkwardly as the weight of the crowd pressed down on them. Finally, the shorter one muttered, "We're done here," and started stepping back toward the street. His partner followed, their shoulders slumping under the shame of being exposed. Linda's eyes darted frantically, searching for a way to claw back control. But the neighbors weren't on her side anymore. Marcus's voice was steady now, fueled by the support around him. "You can file your paperwork, you can send your letters, but from now on, everything you try will be met with transparency. No more intimidation behind closed doors." Phones lowered only slightly, still aimed, still recording. The community had shifted the balance of power, wasn't in Linda's hands anymore. It was in the eyes of every neighbor who saw her tactics laid bare. Danielle stepped closer, her presence unshakable. "Go home, Mrs. Sorensen. Tonight you lost more than an argument. You lost the trust of the people you claim to represent." For the first time all evening, Linda faltered. Her eyes darted, her breath quickened. And without another word, she turned sharply and started down the driveway. Some neighbors exchanged glances, others whispered. The tension didn't vanish, but something new replaced it: solidarity. Marcus exhaled, finally turning to Danielle. "You came home just in time." Danielle placed a hand on his arm, her voice soft but certain. "We'll handle this together." Their daughter peered from the upstairs window, small fingers pressed against the glass, watching her parents stand firm. While Linda walked away into the dark, her heels clicking against the pavement, everyone knew this confrontation wasn't finished. It was only moving to a bigger stage. For a long moment, the neighborhood felt frozen in the aftershock of Linda's retreat. Her heels had barely disappeared down the block when conversations broke open across the crowd. Some neighbors whispered in disbelief, others shook their heads, and a few stepped closer to Marcus and Danielle, like they wanted to show solidarity. Harold spoke first, his gravely voice cutting through the chatter. "I don't like trouble, but I'll tell you this, she went too far tonight, threatening foreclosure without a single piece of proof, bringing along two men who admitted they ain't licensed. That's desperation." Teresa nodded, her dog tugging at the leash impatiently. "She tried to make you an example. If nobody stood up, she would have done it to someone else next." Marcus looked around, his chest rising and falling. "I appreciate all of you speaking up, but I'll be honest, this isn't just about me or my family. If she thinks she can abuse her role like this, then no one's safe." Danielle stood tall beside him, her uniform still crisp despite the long day. She turned slightly toward the crowd. "He's right. Power without accountability is dangerous, and tonight we all saw how easily it can be misused." A man from across the street, wearing a Dallas Cowboys hoodie, raised his hand like he was in a town hall. "What happens now? She's still HOA president. She still has the board behind her." Danielle's eyes locked on his. "That depends. Above the law, they have bylaws, yes, but those bylaws are bound by state and federal law. You can't enforce rules without due process. You can't threaten foreclosure without proper notices.
records and votes. And you certainly can't send unlicensed men to intimidate families. Phones were still recording, but now neighbors lowered them slightly, listening like students in a classroom. Teresa asked, "So what can we do? People talk big at meetings, but no one ever holds the board accountable." Danielle didn't hesitate. Start by demanding transparency. Ask for minutes from board meetings. Ask for budgets, expenditures, records of complaints. You have a legal right to those, and if you suspect misconduct, you document it. The Cowboys fan nodded slowly, as though connecting dots in his mind. So, if she tries this again? Marcus cut in. Then we don't let her do it quietly. Tonight proved something. When people watch, she backs down. The teenager who'd been recording grinned. "I'm uploading this. Folks need to see what happened." A ripple of agreement moved through the group. Danielle stepped forward again, her voice calm but firm, directed at the neighbors but meant for anyone who might still be listening in the shadows. Leadership is supposed to protect, not threaten. Rules are supposed to keep things fair, not give one person power to decide who belongs. If we don't push back, she'll keep crossing lines. Silence hung for a beat, and then Harold said, "Well, I'm with you. She's been running this HOA like it's her personal empire. Maybe it's time someone reminded her she ain't the law." A murmur of agreement followed. Marcus felt the tightness in his chest ease just a little. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was resistance, and people were standing with them. From the corner of the group, another voice spoke. It was a woman named Lillian, who'd been silent until now. She clutched her phone close, but spoke with quiet conviction. "She's already sent me warnings about my front porch plants. Said they didn't fit community guidelines. I never argued because I didn't want trouble. But maybe I should have." Danielle turned to her. "You're not alone. That's the point. When people act alone, intimidation works. But when we stand together, intimidation crumbles." Marcus glanced at his wife, pride swelling in his chest.